and welcome everyone. My name is Haley Cusimano and I am a GMAT instructor, tutor, and content creator. And I am joined today by several folks representing Duke Fuqua who are going to chat with us just a little bit about the admissions process, answer some questions, give some student perspective and insight. And so before we get going, I'd love to get a little bit of an introduction from each of you. So Meghan and Kathryn, if you'd like to go ahead and get started, and then we'll get a brief introduction from our students as well.
Absolutely, I'm happy to start. My name is Kathryn Davies. I've been with Fuqua Admissions for just over 2 years now. So I'm an associate director there and work on our daytime team. And if you've attended any of our virtual sessions, you may have seen me. I usually handle our off-campus events and recruiting and travel, but obviously things have changed this year. So we've moved a lot of that programming online, and Jake and Julian have been on many of those sessions, so thank you guys for that. And I've been working in MBA admissions for about 6 years now.
Hi everyone, my name is Meghan Pollard. I am the Program Director of Admissions and Campus Events. While Kathryn manages our events off campus, I'm your on-campus individual. So of course we're in a virtual space, so I may have seen many of you during some office hours as well. I celebrated 21 years in admissions at Fuqua this September, so it's a place that I just love and have near and dear to my heart, and so glad that you could join us. Jig, may I hand it off to you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jake Patel. Before coming to Fuqua, I was a teacher for 6 years with Teach for America. And this past summer, I interned with McKinsey & Company in the Atlanta office.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julian Kim. I'm a second year and part of the health sector management program at Fuqua. Prior to Fuqua, I spent 6.5 years in the Army and spent my summer with EY Parthenon out of the Boston office.
All right, wonderful. Well, with that, I am going to go ahead and hand things over to Meghan to lead our presentation. Those of you joining us live, we will have time for question and answers at the close of today's session. So please ask your questions. If you have anything that we don't address immediately during the presentation, rest assured that we'll have some time during that Q&A to get some thoughts from this panel. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Meghan.
And I'll see you guys over on YouTube and answer some of your questions in the chat.
All right, I'm going to share my screen and just give a brief presentation about Fuqua and the admissions process, and then we'll kick it off to our amazing current students to answer some questions. So let me just get us going here. So again, welcome. I'm Meghan. I'm happy to talk to you about the Duke MBA, the Fuqua School of Business. This year, our class of 2022 profile has been outstanding. We brought in a class size of 408. We're really proud about the diversity that Fuqua has within the classroom. So we have 38% international students, 46% women, 23% underrepresented minorities, and 37% minorities. And our students are coming in with an average age of 29 years and a little over 5.5 years of work experience. Just to give you an overview about our daytime program, it is a full-time MBA program, 2 years. There's a variety of learning opportunities, so team-based learning, co-curricular experiences, and global opportunities. While you're receiving a general management degree, you can actually specialize your MBA. So you have the opportunity to pursue, there's a variety of 13 concentrations. We do offer 1 MSTEM track, 2 certificate programs, and 4 dual degree programs. Something that we're really proud about is that as you're coming in as a first-year student, you may be thinking about pivoting in your career or staying in that area, but we have dedicated career resources through our Career Management Center. So there's career coaching, a variety of workshops, resume reviews, and also assisting you throughout the recruitment process. A very important component of this MBA experience is your extracurricular activities. So we offer over 50+ student clubs. They can be socially based or professionally as well to support that MBA journey. One thing that we love near and dear to our heart is Camp Out. It's an informal way of networking with your classmates right in the beginning, and Camp Out is the opportunity to spend a weekend to literally camp out for tickets for Duke basketball through a lottery system. We also offer the MBA, our MBA Association Games, and this is one of our largest fundraisers for the North Carolina Special Olympics. And then we also offer Blue Cup as well, which is we have a rivalry with UNC, and so different types of activities and games to compete as well and to champion for the winning of the Blue Cup. I want to talk to you a little bit about your experience at Duke. Not only will you be a Fuqua student, but you'll be a Duke University student as well, so you are able to leverage all the amenities that Duke has to offer and enjoy it as well. And whether that's going to the Duke Chapel or strolling around the Sarah B.G. Gardens and seeing concerts there as well, that's an opportunity. And like I said, not only are you a Fuqua student, a Duke student, but you will be inducted as a Cameron Crazy. And so here's a little sneak peek of what that may look like as well. I know the games that I've attended have been electric and exciting and just another way to bond within the community. So we are located in the state of North Carolina, and particularly in Durham. And so we're part of what's called the Research Triangle Park. So that's anchoring between Durham, Raleigh, and Chapel Hill as well. One thing that I like to boast is that as a student, you have the opportunity to be 2 hours from the beach or 2 hours from the mountains. So an opportunity to get out and explore the area as well. So a couple of key of Duke differentiators. First of all is our culture, our Team Fuqua culture, which I know Jig and Julian will talk about as well, but just such an inclusive and diverse community that really welcomes and lending the sharing of different types of perspectives and experience as well. And again, you get to customize your MBA. So you're able to achieve your goals by defining in terms of what type of concentration that you'd like to do, as well as any other activities such as a mentored studies program, experiential learning. And you get to spend 2 years in a really amazing city. I love Durham, North Carolina. It's just an incredibly progressive and exciting place as well. And lots of places to go out to eat. It's a very big foodie town and entertainment as well. So you can enjoy and explore all of that as well. So what are we looking for in our candidates? Well, first of all, it's the diversity of people, the perspectives that you bring, life experiences, and then also your work experience as well. So there isn't one key candidate. We really are looking for you to bring your authentic self to this journey as we're going through the admissions process, and looking for a clear understanding of why Duke Fuqua is a school that you want to be a part of, and not only just in terms of what you will take away, but what you give. We really feel like this is a transformational experience and not a transaction. And most importantly, we're ready for you to come in and make an impact. So thinking about what kind of legacy will you leave. Jig and Julian are 2 admissions fellows, and they help to interview our admissions prospective students. They've already been making an impact in that sense of helping us to craft the class. So inside the admissions process, on the right side, you'll see a variety of deadlines. The first thing that I would share to you is that apply as early as you can without sacrificing the quality of your application. We don't have quotas in terms of how many people that we admit per round. We're looking to just admit your best self. And when you're ready to apply, then that's the great time to hit the submit button. To the left, there are some key components that we evaluate. We take very much a holistic approach. So there isn't one area that is more important versus another area as well. So first focus area that we look at is your academics. So looking at either your GMAT, your GRE, or your executive assessment. I would like to stress that you are more than your test score. So we publish an average and a range, but again, we're looking at your entire academic experiences. And then we'll look at your GPA as well as the rigor of your program. With work experience, typically, as I said, students will have about 5 years of work experience, but really looking to see how you've made an impact, whether that was from a formal role that you had, or maybe it was self-initiated. There's 3 areas that we look at, and that's people, projects, and budgets. And so looking at the management of people, projects, and budgets. So really thinking about in terms of, how you've made an impact, how did you step into that role, how did you foster relationships and on a team, and so forth. And then one area I like very much so, and it goes back to wanting you to make an impact, is leadership and involvement. So what were some of those activities that you were involved in your undergraduate institution, and how are you making an impact now? So it could be professional organizations, volunteer activities, in terms of how you facilitated that activity. But we're really looking for that authentic engagement and that impactful stewardship. This year, our essays have slightly changed a little bit. We have one short essay. So we're looking for you to share, what is your short-term goal post-MBA? Really reflecting on that. And then also, if your short-term goal doesn't come to fruition, what is your plan B? What is your backup plan as well? This will allow the admissions committee to see that you've really thought about why you're ready for the MBA and what it is that you're looking to pursue. Our next essay is absolutely one of my favorites. It's the 25 random things about you. And this is your opportunity to tell us who you are, what people have inspired you, what things have you done, trips that you've taken, people that have influenced in your life as well. And this is just really getting to the heart of learning who you are as well. It is a business school application, so we do expect you to take it seriously, but also we want to see that lighter side of you and who you are as well. And you can include pictures or even hyperlinks, and that's completely up to your discretion. And then finally, our last long essay is, how will you be involved at Fuqua? And so sharing 3 ways that you may be interested in being engaged. And that could be professionally or even personally as well. But really, it's just showing us that you've done your research and you're excited about coming to Fuqua, and how you will, again, be authentically engaged within our community inside and outside the classroom. We do require one letter of recommendation. Certainly you can submit two, but looking for that one letter of recommendation, preferably from a current manager or supervisor. If you're not able to ask them directly because that might impact you, we do offer an optional statement, so you can certainly share that as well. Really, again, it should be a professional letter of recommendation. It should not be an academic recommendation. And then finally, the interview at this point in time is where you really bring to life your application. And so with rounds 1, 2, and 3, we will read your application, and then we will invite you for an interview. And that could be with an admissions fellow such as Jig or Julian, or myself as a staff member or an alum. But it is a behaviorally based interview. It is resume based as well. So they will only have your resume. And we'll ask questions in terms of, why are you ready? Why are you interested in Fuqua? And we want to see that excitement and also that reflection of what you've done in terms of preparing for that point. And again, how you've grown in your role and why you're ready to jump on board and get that MBA. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and then we will go into the Q&A. So Jig and Julian, so grateful that you're here. So I just wanted to start off with just a couple of easy questions. And so, and you both can address it, is why did you want to pursue an MBA, and how did you know it was the right time?
Yeah, I could start. So for me, I had been in education for 6 years when I was, or 5 years when I started to think about an MBA. And I felt like I knew a lot about education. I felt like I almost had a PhD, but that's all I knew how to do. And I knew that to make society better, you need more than just good education system. So I wanted to get an MBA so I could learn about other industries that make society an amazing place for kids. And so that's why I decided to get an MBA. And it was the right time for me because at that point, I had to make a decision between either leaving education or moving into a leadership role like being a principal or working for a Department of Education. And I don't think I was ready to take any of those roles. And so I thought, I'll go get an MBA, learn about other industries, and then see, where I want to end up after.
Likewise, I think my story echoes very similarly to Jig. I was at a junction where I had to make a decision for professional and personal reasons. So as a captain in the Army, to promote to major, that's a pretty significant step that requires education. So I really had to make a decision of, do I want to continue this career in the Army? When I was planning out my life long term, I've always known that I wanted to eventually get to life sciences. As an undergrad, I'm a background in science, so I knew that I wanted to make that jump in industry, and so really made sense for me that an MBA would be the way to do that. Would provide me with the knowledge and the skills and the peers who I could kind of learn from and network with as well. And so Fuqua, in addition to the HSM program, which is very highly regarded, and I've learned a lot and really indebted to the faculty in the HSM program. That's what really drew me to Fuqua. And personally, for me, my wife and I, we've been living part long distance because of my obligations to the Army. So I was looking for a way to kind of settle down in the Boston area with my wife. So that's the secondary reason to why I chose to get an MBA.
Thank you so much. There are a lot of similarities between top MBA programs, but what is it about Fuqua's that's unique and different?
Yeah, so I visited the schools I was considering, and for me, what stood out was how much people are invested in your personal and professional success. And I think I saw professional investment at lots of places, but for Fuqua, it was my personal success. People wanted me to be happy from the moment I walked through the doors at school. And I remember meeting a current student at that time, and she just talked to me about like, hey, you're applying, so like, are you considering your happiness when you're looking at these places? And I didn't get asked that question at a lot of places, and for me that stood out about Fuqua. And then the second part to that is just the fact how much they care about getting to know you as a person. I think I don't think I've had a faculty member who hasn't read my resume before starting their class. And it's kind of weird because like they know you before you even walk in. And I remember one of my classes, I got cold called on the first day because I had something on And that's been really fantastic. And I saw that when I was visiting. I had visited a couple of classes, and that was true then, and I experienced it firsthand at Fuqua. So those two combinations where people want you to be happy and successful, but also have faculty members who care about your learning and your growth. Those two things really stood out to me about Fuqua.
And I think really kind of Jig just really hit it on the head. I mean, I think my stories was just double down on that. And I think with all the top programs, there's a lot of similarities, and each programs have their own strengths. But to me, what really stood out was it was the culture at Fuqua and Duke as a whole. And so through my interviewing process, when I was talking with the first years and the second years, when I was a prospective student, I was kind of taken back by, to Jig's point, how much they wanted to get to know me. And it was not so much of, they weren't asking questions like, tell me about yourself. So what have you done? Like, why do you think you would be successful at Fuqua? They want to understand what I want to take out from the experience, how Fuqua could help me. And so to me, I felt like I was being already kind of absorbed into the community, even as a prospective student, which made me want to come even more. And secondly, I think this culture, what I've noticed is that it pervades Fuqua, right? And as Meghan pointed out, you're part of the larger Duke University, and Fuqua is very well integrated. So I think this Team Fuqua concept really extends beyond the walls of Fuqua and into the larger Duke University. So I feel, and you can see that through the programs that we offer, all the collaborations you can have with the different schools, different programs you could be a part of, as well as working with the Office of Licensing Ventures, which was something that's really interesting for me. And so, it's really that culture and that fit. And I think for all of the prospective students out there, I would encourage you to reach out and really understand what is the culture like, and can you fit in, and what do you really see as your biggest value, but from the culture perspective.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And you really touched upon, my question was, how do you define or explain Team Fuqua to someone? And I think you all have done that. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that point?
I think the only thing I would add, and I think Jay kind of pointed it out too, is that Team Fuqua, if you're to try to quantify it in one way or another, we have the Fuqua paired principles, the 6 principles that really define what it means to be Team Fuqua, but everyone has their own stories. And to me, if I had to distill it down, what it means to me, I think the mentality we have as a student body as a whole is we're in it together. One person's success is everyone's success. And so I saw that as a first year when I was recruiting, and having zero business background, zero financial consulting, healthcare background, trying to prepare for my case interviews, just seeing how helpful everybody was, reaching out, giving me the pointers and tips, and sacrificing their time when they're also recruiting to help me be successful. And so for me, how that's affected me, I think the thing with Fuqua, since we all are in it together, we have a very big pay it forward mentality. And so as a second year, I want to see others succeed, even though I can, time is, I can just relax and do whatever I want now. That's what I chose not to do. I want to see others be successful because I can feel their excitement. I want to feel their excitement when they're successful. And so to me, that's what Team Fuqua really is.
Yeah, for me, and sometimes we talk about a lot of the big picture and big events, and to me, sometimes it's Team Fuqua is all about those small moments that just put a smile on your face. And last year, recruiting was a little difficult for me just because I was in India right before recruiting for my brother's wedding, so I was kind of missing out all of the interview prep and things like that. So when I came back, I had to really just get things going. And one of my really good friends saw that I was kind of struggling. And so the morning of the interview, he put a sticky note on my locker, and it just said, "You're looking great today, go crush it." And that's the offer I got, which was McKinsey. So for me, it's just people doing those small things to just make sure that you're happy and you're successful. That to me, that's Team Fuqua.
Thanks, Jay. I love that story. And thank you so much, Julian, as well. I could not agree more in terms of it's not just the grand gestures, but it's the small gestures that go really far with feeling Team Fuqua. And that's something that I'm very grateful for, working in admissions and also working with you both. Just to shift a little bit, I'm very biased. I love living in Durham, North Carolina, but I've been here for a really long time. And so I just want to ask you, can you tell me a little bit about what it's like to live in Durham as a student, and some key highlights?
Yeah, I can start with that. So, personally, from my background, I'm from the East Coast, but I've also lived all over the country because of the Army. Started off Baltimore, lived in Seattle, Arizona, and ended up actually living in North Carolina in the Army as well. And the thing that really strikes me is, some people describe Durham as being like a small town. I don't think it's as small as like a small town, maybe a small city, but really it has all the amenities. And surprisingly so, there's a lot of things stuffed, packed into Durham. And I really enjoy it. You get your classic college campus experience here just because it is a smaller city. It's more tight knit. So the opportunities for you to relax and to hang out with your fellow cohort it's phenomenal. Whether that is going for a hike or for a run. There's so many parks around here, not just on Durham campus, but within like the Research Triangle area. And like Meghan mentioned, you got Asheville close by, or you get the Outer Banks really close by. So that provides a lot of opportunities for you to have really meaningful trips with your fellow peers. Additionally, the food. I personally love the food. Like I said, I spent the summer in Boston, and you think Boston has all the great food, but like I miss food down here. Some of the best boba tea I've ever had is actually weirdly here in Durham. Pizza, love pizza. Surprisingly good sushi here too. It's a kind of like a foodie haven kind of. It's a hole in the wall, and so really so many opportunities. But because it's close in a tight community here, it's a great way to spend your 2 years getting to know your classmates.
Yeah, for me, I think about it as 4 B's. So first, breweries. So there are lots of breweries here in Durham and close by, especially in Asheville. So that's number 1. Number 2, baseball. So I love baseball. We've got a team here, Durham Bulls. So I like the fact that we could take a group of Fuqua students, hang out Friday after school, and just have a good time. Basketball, of course, I went to University of Connecticut for undergrad, but now, of course, converted to Blue Devils. So I love, going to basketball games, just cheering on our team. And then bicycle. So I love to ride my bike, and Durham is such a bike-friendly community. There is a long tobacco trail. I think it's like 26 or something miles. So the fact that you get all of those things that you could do outdoors, that's special to me. And I've got a dog, so anytime I could be in a community where I could go running with him, walking with him, it's special. So I think that those 4 B's are for me the key to Durham.
And also just to add, I forgot to mention this as well. So, from a lot of my friends who've asked me, what some of the problems with going to an MBA in a small city was like, not, from a recruiting perspective, it's hard to get to the New Yorks or the Bostons. But that's not the case here. The airport has all the major flights, and RDU is a surprisingly phenomenal airport. So I always like to point out that, if you have to travel for personal or professional reasons, like, really everything, the world is within your grasp with the RDU airport here.
Thank you so much to you both. I really love that. So before we open it up for individuals to ask you questions, just wanted to wrap up and ask you, what was the toughest part about applying to business school? And what advice do you have for those putting their applications together?
So for me, I think the entire applications was difficult in hindsight, and it's like with the GMAT and, with all the applications. But honestly, I think what took the most time for me is writing the essays. And I say that was the most difficult part because I think a lot of people, well, for me especially, I kind of overlooked that as being a limiting step, if you will, because I always thought like a GMAT, like I have to get the high GMAT score. But what I didn't realize is to write a compelling essay, and then the essays, as well as having a good interview, is you really need to reflect and take stock of what you've done, who you've become, and to understand like where do you want to get to. Because when it comes to writing those authentic essays and to have an authentic engagement with your interviewer, you need to present yourself, your true self, and because the only way to have that authentic engagement is really to tap into who you truly are, as opposed to who you think that the interviewer or the admissions committee will like. And so taking that extra time I took blank pieces of paper and sat for a couple of days just mapping out my entire career, things I've done, things I could have done better, and where I would like to be, and try to understand like where can I bridge that gap through business school. And so that is what I ended up doing to write my essays and my and to prepare for my interviews. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about, but I think it does really show when you have those conversations and when you're telling your story to others.
Yeah, for me, I found two things to be particularly difficult. First was just not focusing on all of my like weaknesses or like, oh, this is not perfect in my application or this is not perfect. And so like really, yeah, like it's important to focus on those things, but like I struggle to focus on what will I bring to this community. So that's the second part. I think at the beginning of the application process, I was solely focused on what can I get from an MBA program, and I wasn't focused on what can I give to my peers. And so during the application process and the interview process, and when you're writing those essays, just don't think about why is this school good for me, like, or right fit for me, like what can I get from them, but also think about what can I give to other people at this school, and how can I do that. And so for me, once I had that mindset, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm not perfect at everything, but I'm a teacher. So one thing I could bring is just positive attitude. And when someone is like not doing great, which I have to deal with as a teacher, I could like lift people up. So that's one thing I can bring to an MBA program, and that could be my strength. So have that perspective on what are my strengths and how can I use that to make other people's experience better at a business school.
Thank you so much. So just going to shift in terms of seeing the questions in the comment section. So Julian, this one's for you. Can you talk a little bit about the HSM program and what have been some key highlights for you, and how has that supported your MBA journey and also your career search?
Yeah, for sure. So for those who don't know, HSM stands for the Health Sector Management Program, and it's one of those certificate programs that you get in addition to the MBA that Megan had talked about earlier. And it's a phenomenal program, and I think, I mean, maybe I'm a little biased because I'm part of the program. I think it's one of the key strengths. But it is a very comprehensive program, and it's closely linked to the Healthcare Club, which is, you know, if you want to make the distinction, the HSM is run by faculty, and then the Healthcare Club is run by the students. And so there's very close collaboration between those two. So the Health Sector Management Program, it starts off with, you know, a one week boot camp that you attend even before the school year starts in the summer before. And it's literally a boot camp. It's an intensive of the healthcare and life sciences industry. And for me, for a person who has no professional background, that was such a great way for the school to level set everybody's understanding of the healthcare and life sciences industry. And not only that, they bring in industry professionals to talk about their those respective subsectors within those industries. So, for example, we had a day where we just talked about payers, like the insurance providers. And we had someone from insurance, like a big company from insurance, come talk about it. Or we had a day about pharmaceuticals, and a large pharmaceutical person had come to talk about what the state of the pharmaceutical industry is. And so that's how you begin. And it's a great way to start off the program. And then from there, you go off to start talking about like the policies, the economics, the strategy. This year, I'm actually taking the pharma biotech strategy class, because that's where I've chosen to kind of specialized by understanding, but we have, you know, those strategy class for every single subsector within life sciences and healthcare. And, you know, I think what's really awesome is, like before I mentioned, that Fuqua goes beyond the walls of, you know, Fuqua and to bigger Duke. Duke itself has a very strong presence within life sciences and healthcare, and Duke Hospital's right here. So there's a lot of collaboration with Duke Hospital and opportunities for Fuqua HSM members to do internships during the school year, or to participate in like cross school programs where, you know, they bring in doctors, engineers, MBA students to work on a startup idea or whatever project idea that may come across. So, I mean, it's a phenomenal way to get really intimate with the healthcare and life sciences industry. My personal favorite moments of HSM is actually with the amount of distinguished speakers that can come that come to talk about their experiences. Like I said, you know, with all the PhDs and doctors that come out of Duke, we have strong ties with a lot of these pharmaceuticals, whether private or public, you know, academic. And so having a strategy person come from Genentech and talk about how he had ended up doing business, how he got his journey to business development at Genentech. And so that was such an eye-opening experience, because he had a unconventional background. So it was refreshing for me to hear how he got there, just because it shows that like, I, with no healthcare life science experience, can get into those roles. And so for me, it's prepared me very well for consulting. I was, very interested to go to life sciences consulting. And so being able to provide that secondary, tertiary level understanding of the industry that I'm interested in provided more interesting conversations and deeper conversations with my interviewers, and ultimately with the partner I was working with over the summer. So I guess maybe I did something right because I'm able to go back, but HSM really does prepare you. And I think it's hard for a person to do all research individually. So, having the economics professors, the doctors, and the other various PhDs to come and teach that to you it's a huge boon, I think, if your interest does lie with life sciences or healthcare.
Thanks, Julian. And Jake, this question is specifically for you because you're coming from an education background. But could you talk a little bit more about what your post-MBA goals are, and how is Fuqua helping you out in and of the same?
Yeah, so for me, I've got my short-term goal is to, of course, go back to McKinsey and do consulting, but my long-term goal is to start my own social and enterprise. And so Duke has helped me in two ways. So first of all, in terms of getting the internship, I came in not knowing a lot about consulting. So Duke helped me figure out that this was the right industry for me by hosting we call it symposium. So like one day event where like we bring in panels around different topics. And these panels are comprised of usually Fuqua alums working in the consulting industry. So that's step one. Step two is then once you figure out that it's the right industry for you, Duke does or Fuqua does like a roadmap. So they help you kind of prep for the interview process. And while that's happening at the same time, we have companies, all of the top consulting firms, they come in and do presentations and coffee chats. So you start to learn how to interview, but you also start to learn about different firms that are out there. And at the end of that 6-7 week process, you will be like all of the first year students are paired with one second year student in like small pods, and you start to like actually practice the interviews with those second year students. And then they have of course you go interview. During that interview process, you could leverage second year students, you could leverage CMC, our career management center, to help you just make sure you're on track to getting offers. And so that's how they have kind of helped me with my short-term goal and getting that internship and full-time offer for after Fuqua. And in terms of my long-term goal is to go into social entrepreneurship. And so Duke has helped me just connect with classmates who are directly going into that field through the Center for Social Entrepreneurship. So I'm a fellow with that center, and that center brings in, I think, 12 to 15 fellows who are doing a variety of work. So I'm going into consulting, but some of my peers are going into nonprofit or tech, but we all have that vision of how can we make society better through business. And so Duke has given me that network that I could leverage when I eventually want to kind of go in and do my own thing after consulting.
Thank you. This is a really good question. The question is, what is the biggest change you see in yourself after you started the program at Duke? It's a good question.
Okay, I'll let Jake give him some time to think. I think for me, I think it's my confidence, actually. So as a transitioning veteran, I was very, I knew everything there is to know. Well, maybe not, but I felt like I knew a lot about the military, and I knew that my knowledge was very niche. And so making that transition, I was very apprehensive. I was like, who's gonna hire someone with zero business background, no knowledge about accounting or finance or things like that. So I always thought coming to business program that I couldn't compete with my peers, that my peers would surpass me. But what I've learned coming to this MBA program and to Fuqua is that I am more capable than I think, and that as long as I tap into the right networks with my peers are really the ones who kind of help me to achieve that knowledge, that understanding, and the confidence, really. And so now I feel like when I talk, to the first years, when I talk with the practitioners at my company, it's hard for me to think, just a year ago, I was, in your seat, really nervous, really scared, wondering where I'm going to be in a year to two. But, don't sell yourself short. You will grow, you will learn, especially surround yourself with the people who will empower you to do that.
Yeah, for me, I think similar to Julian, confidence, but in a very specific way. So I think coming from education, a lot of problems were like very confined to education. It was like I was good at solving them, right? Because I knew the education space. And so now I think that one of the biggest change I've seen in myself is I could go and face a challenge in an industry that I have no idea about what it's about, and I could leverage the people around me, resources around me, and figure out how to structure that problem where it's manageable and it's solvable. So I think not being scared to face problems that are something that I haven't seen before, and do it in an exciting, fun, positive attitude manner. I think that's one of the biggest change I've seen, because, and I think what has caused that change is at Fuqua, in all of the core classes, you read cases and real life cases. And so you're learning about all different types of industries. I had no idea what the apparel industry, how it works. And because of one of the marketing cases, I know way too much about it. So you build that self-confidence around solving ambiguous problems.
Thank you to you both. Shifting a little bit in a more fun area to talk about as well is that, what are some of the clubs and activities that you're involved with outside of the class? And what have you enjoyed?
Yeah, so I could take that first. So I'm involved with 3 clubs. First, Fuqua Pride. That's kind of like my family at Fuqua. Not that the whole Fuqua community is in my family, but that's my pure bubble where it's I just know every single person in the club and on a very personal level about their family and everything. So that's the club that has meant a lot to me. So that's one. The second one, it's Net Impact. So that's our social impact club on campus. And I'm involved with that club because it's just such a like-minded classmates who are all driven by some type of mission to make society better, and from a variety of different perspectives. So some people are coming from healthcare, agriculture, education, for-profit. So I just like the fact that you have over 150 people kind of thinking the same way about society. And then lastly, I'm involved with Consulting Club. That club got me going from not knowing a lot about consulting to being able to get an offer. And so I'm involved just to kind of pay it forward and help first-year students, kind of find themselves in consulting. So those are the 3 clubs I'm involved with on campus.
And so for myself, I think for me, I'm also part of DAFA, which is the Duke Armed Forces Association, which is a long way of saying the Veterans Club. And it is a very tight-knit group, just because I think it's easy to identify with the challenges of being a veteran transitioning to business world. And they provide all those resources through DAFA. And I would say for any affinity group at Fuqua, they do a really good job of kind of understanding your individual backgrounds or the constraints that may be there and helping you to overcome those. So we're a tight-knit group, and we're always checking up on each other and doing things professionally and for fun. And the other clubs I'm a part of are the Healthcare Club and the Consulting Club. And for the Healthcare Club, I'm part of that really because it's such an interesting way to connect with other Fuqua alumni who are asked to come talk, or for events that we may go out to see them for. And really, as Jig mentioned, it's nice to pay it forward. There's a lot of people who, just like me, who have transitioned, who try to transition to healthcare life sciences. So for me, I can identify with those people and want to provide that background with, with 0 experience, you can also be successful in your transition. So really want to pay that forward. And likewise for the Consulting Club, recruiting is tough, and we need second years who can provide that insight to the first years. So granted, I may only have one year of experience recruiting, but I've made plenty of mistakes. I know the mistakes that the next incoming first years should not make. And so I'm trying to convey that as much as possible and help them as much as I can. And then there's also a bunch of the fun clubs, beer club, wine club. I think that goes without saying, always fun to join. At Fuqua, it's only one fee you pay for all the clubs. So join as many as you can and have as much fun as you can while you're at Fuqua.
Thanks, Julian. So, and this is an interesting segue too, is as we're talking about just the community in general, but maybe just speaking more about like how partners are integrated within the community, as well as anyone that's bringing families.
Yeah, and so as I mentioned, I'm married, got married just before starting business school. And however, my wife does live not virtually, she lives away in Boston. We live separately right now. And I do think that the partners and the children at Fuqua are integrated very well, to the point that there's 6 sections here at Fuqua, but there's also the section 7, which is full of all the partners. So honestly, I think they get the best deal because they can have fun and go to all the farmers markets and all the wine tastings while their significant other is studying for finance, accounting, and recruiting. But yeah, they're integrated very, very closely. Even though my wife is not here locally, she is a part of the group, so she understands, people are always communicating to her. She's communicating out to them. And when she does come visit, I mean, she's welcomed into section 7, as well as my own my own section as well. I've had a few friends who joke that they wish that she was part of the program because they think she's more fun than I am, unfortunately. But yeah, very well integrated. And if you see at all the social events too, such as Fuqua Fridays, it's not just for students, it's for the entire family, to include like the dogs as well. Everybody comes, you see the kids. I have a few classmates who have, a couple of kids actually, not just one kid. And, when they bring them, it's always nice to catch up and see how they're doing. And it's always a nice way to lighten the mood, especially when you're in fall 1, fall 2, when things get really heavy with academics and recruiting.
Yeah, and I think from the other perspective of being single and at Fuqua, so I've got my dog. So there is a whole group me for dog lovers or pet lovers. So all pets included. And so that's one. Second, as Julian mentioned, you get to know the partners and kids of all of your classmates. And then also during Fuqua Friday, professors will bring their kids and their partners. So it's a really good sense of community where everyone wants to kind of bring their authentic self and who they are at home. They kind of bring it to Fuqua. And I think that's what makes it a special place though. There isn't a divide of this is who I am at Fuqua and this is my personal life. People just bring their authentic self at Fuqua. So everyone knows about my spoiled dog Cash. That's part of my identity. So everyone just knows that at Fuqua. So yeah, I think it's a good family-oriented program.
Thanks so much. Just shifting a little bit more. Question about, what is Duke doing in the space of diversity, inclusion, equity? And specifically, someone wanted to know, what are some of the resources for women at Fuqua, and even talking about allyship in general?
So I could start and talk about some of the programs. So first, we have lots of diversity clubs who work together. So these clubs are not kind of doing their own thing in isolation. But for example, last year we had a happy hour with Fuqua Pride and DAFA, and just talking about recruiting and just getting to know members from different clubs. This year we're trying to so a lot of employers will reach out to each of the diversity clubs, but they may not reach out to every single one. They might just reach out to Fuqua Pride. So one thing we're doing as diversity clubs this year is coordinating when a company comes on campus, we're saying hey, instead of just presenting to one diversity club, can you present to every single one of us? So we could all be lifted up. And so that's one way where we're kind of working in diversity and inclusion space. Second, we have have an individual, I forget her exact title, Stephanie Robertson, who kind of helps us kind of make sure we have one vision for a community for diversity and inclusion. So that person has diversity and inclusion fellows that they put on programming. They also like do trainings for first and second year students around things like implicit bias. And then she's also a great person to go to if you like are uncomfortable with something on campus and you want to see change. And she's always there. And I actually met with her last week about like just making sure I was like, hey, I think this is where we could do better as a community within Fuqua Pride. And like we chatted and we came up with a plan. So those are two ways where Fuqua is trying to just make sure our community is just as inclusive as possible. And lots more, but I'll let Julian talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, and I also want to echo Jig's point about kind of how the different diversity groups aren't siloed, and I think that's one of the key flaws when it comes to diversity, equity, and having conversations and kind of eliminating the gap of the lack of diversity or the issues with discrimination. So I think the conversations can't take place if there is no communication between the different diversity groups, and so that's something that Fuqua does a really good job of. And even when it goes to like, I remember first year, one of the first Fuqua Fridays where we had the different diversity clubs kind of doing like an act or a presentation or something just to kind of show what they offer to Fuqua. And that was a really cool way to be culturally immersed. And then that's on a more fun front. But then as Jig mentioned already, there's a lot of collaboration taking place on the professional front. And regarding resources, there's many resources, and this is for all the diversity groups, whether that is from the recruiting perspective, as Jig had mentioned, pretty much all large firms have diversity hiring initiatives in place, and so these diversity groups are really those first places that those companies reach out to. And I think also a good example is for people within these different diversity groups. They graduate, they go to these companies, they become very invested, not only their own like diversity identity, but Fuqua as well. So they're the ones coming back to do those presentations and the interviews. And so like for me, for example, I'm very invested in trying to increase EY Parthenon's presence within DAFA. And so, the challenge is accepted with all the other second years who are trying to recruit for their companies. And then from an academic perspective, to Jig's point again about collaboration, there's a lot of tutoring sessions that are available specifically just for diversity groups. Because when there is like the more difficult classes like accounting and finance, Fuqua does offer those tutor sessions that you can go to after class before major exams, but they tend to be a little bit on the bigger side. You can get more personalized attention through the diversity groups, because I remember Blimbao, which is the African American and Latin American diversity group as well at Fuqua. We combined together to provide tutoring sessions just for the diversity groups for accounting specifically is what I remember, because that's the one I went to a lot of. And so there are a lot of resources here that prepare you not just personally, but I would say academically and professionally here at Fuqua.
Thanks so much, y'all. Looks like we're needing to wrap it up. So maybe one quick short question. What would you share in terms of just like piece of advice, kind of closing remarks in terms of as people go through this MBA journey?
My closing advice to everyone, and granted, this is difficult due to the COVID situation. I think that I learned the most by visiting the campuses. I think just by scouring the website, really everything is just going to look the same. And so you really need to visit the campus, or even don't be afraid to reach out. Second years and first years, especially at Fuqua, we're more than happy, very excited to talk to you about the program and how the program has helped us and how we're being involved in the program. So by that, you can really understand, what Fuqua is about, and you can see if that really fits in with what you're looking for. Because more than anything, it matters a lot more about the fit as opposed to just rankings. I don't think really rankings don't matter. That rankings won't guarantee your own success. It's your fit into the environment and how much can you give and how much can you get back. So I encourage you to reach out to as many first years and second years. Don't be afraid. The myth of like they're taking notes on you, things like that is completely false. We're just students. We understand where you came from. We understand the difficulty of applying. So we're here to help, and I'm sure it's like the same way in the other programs as well.
Yeah, for me, adding on to Julian, like visit and get to know people, and of course, like getting a job and internship, like that should be the minimum qualification in terms of like picking an MBA program. More importantly, is just like, will I be happy? And I think I've been on a couple of these chats, and that's always my advice: is when you're selecting a program, ask yourself, will I be happy for 2 years there? And even as an alum, will I be happy to say I'm part of this community?
Thank you so much, Jig. And if I can offer a piece of advice to you all as you're going throughout your application journey, is that sometimes people feel like the only way to celebrate their MBA journey is when they find out from the school that they were admitted to. And yes, it's very important. But as you're taking this time, it really is a gift of time that you get to invest in yourself and self-reflect, is celebrate along the journey. So after you take that test, celebrate. Once you've finished your essays, celebrate. Have a community around you that will keep you going in that process. And then once you hit submit, celebrate and know that you've done everything that you've needed to do. But just again, I can't emphasize it enough that it is definitely a journey. And so again, just celebrate all those little successes along the way, because it is such a gift, a wonderful gift that you'll give yourself in this process. So, oh, great. Well, thank you so much again.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us. As someone who originally hails from right around Durham, North Carolina, all your conversation about culture and food is making me miss the area more than a little bit. But thank you so much for joining Meghan, Jig, Julian, and Kathryn in the chat. Thank you for those of us joining live, and for all of the wonderful questions that we've had along the way. Looks like that's about all the time that we have, but thanks again so much to our panel and to our live audience. And look forward to seeing you back in one of our other MBA Spotlight sessions soon. Thanks.
Thank you.